Welcome back to room one. Who here uses a static site generator or has used a static site generator? Okay, we use them for different things. It's kind of become this popular thing. I use them to create design comps. Instead of in Photoshop, I use a static site generator to do that. So now a lot of people are seeing that smaller sites don't need a CMS. They can use a static site generator for that, or for prototyping or templating. So here to talk about a particular static site generator are two people whose last names I'm not prepared to try and pronounce. So please welcome Thomas and Olga.
Do you hear me well? Hi there, I'm Olga. I'm originally Ukrainian, that's why my last name looks like a Wi-Fi code, so feel free to use it if you want. I am originally a backend developer. I used to do C# development, but as I moved to Switzerland, I decided I want to be the nice part of the web development, and I switched and I became a front-ender. This is us.
Hi, so my name is Thomas. I'm living in eastern Switzerland, and I've been working as a front-end engineer for about 8 years. We are part of a team of 10 front-end engineers at Zurich, which is a Swiss agency. In total we have about 150 engineers, and we are distributed over multiple locations in Switzerland, Germany, Austria, and Poland. And our front end is part of an interdisciplinary team of designers as well. So, what we do in every project is creating a static front-end prototype. And we do this to be highly flexible while developing. So we have to support a bunch of backend systems, but we don't want to do this too early on. So we start by creating a static version of the front end. Like this, we can try things out, rework them, throw them away, start again, everything without having to worry about the backend, but just using mocked data. And along the way, we've discovered some issues we would like to share with you. The first one would be communication. So there are many people involved in a web project, and it turns out that you can somehow improve the result if you talk to them. And, well, who is there? First of all, we have our designers, and designers have needs. I was told that the most important need would be to be mentioned on awards.com, I guess. But they also want to quickly prototype things in the browser. At some point, they want to check our work and make sure that it somehow resembles their original designs. Then we have backend engineers, and they want to know how a front-end component is structured, how it looks and behaves. We have project managers who care a lot about the progress of our project. The customers will also care about the progress, but they also want to discuss, different solutions with us. And they want to compare the results to their original requirements. And how do we solve this? How do we approach this situation? So one approach would be to gather everyone around our screen, and we could point at things. And it's really important that someone brings a basketball. But another approach would be to use a preview server. So a server where the current state of our static front-end prototype, as well as every previous state, would be always accessible. And we will quickly show you what we're using for this. So when you log into this preview server, you will be greeted by every project you have access to. So internally, this will be all, but a customer would only have access to his specific project. Then if you go to a project page, that's where the magic happens. You will see a list of every build of our static front-end prototype there is. They all have a number and a date, but because numbers and dates don't really tell you a lot about the content of a build, you will also see the Git changelog there. So if you want to find out what changed between this version, I think I'm still a bit nervous. So yeah, we missed the lightning talk about not freaking out. You can check the git changelog and you will know what changed between two builds. You can also go to the code, change there to the git commits, so it's all connected. If you click the preview button, you will be led to this overview page of a specific build, and each build has some pages, modules, and some generic style guide aspects. But Olga will tell you more about this later on. And if you go visit one of these pages, you might see something like this. And the really important thing there is that every build has its own unique URL. And we went as far as giving every build its own subdomain, just to make it easier to deal with some relative asset paths. And you can send these links around. So, well, before we had this preview server, when we wanted to show our work to someone else, we had to send files around. We had to hope that the recipient would be able to open these files in his or her browser, that JavaScript would run. So this wasn't very stable. And like this, you just send around links. And it also simplifies testing a lot. So at some point, you want to check out your front end on different devices. They might not be in the same network, but like this, you don't have to try to access your local development environment from outside. You just go to the preview server and check it out there. And now Olga will show you how what we've seen here and here is created.
You give me the controls. Okay, so our company is a true agency, and that means that some weeks are easier, some weeks are more difficult. The difficult weeks, each of us probably has to contribute to 4 or more projects during a week. So this is a highly dynamic environment, and we have to be really speedy. What helps here? Of course, automating your daily front-end routines. You probably have to work with templates and partials, generate some CSS by minifying it on the way, handle JavaScript by doing all these nice things to it, work with icons and images, and have a live reload every time when you make any changes to your source code. So there is a million tools to do that out there in the internet, and I'd like to go into details about which tools we selected and how we combined them all together into our own static site generator. And at this point, I feel that I have to answer this question. Why didn't we use an existing one? Because there is so much different static site generators, and the new ones are appearing every day. Well, the story is that 3 years ago, we have been using an existing static site generator called Middleman. It's a great piece of software. It saved us lots of time, and there are much more other generators like it to check out. There's the whole huge website about them. But we had issues with it. And the first issue was that the out-of-the-box static site generator that you decide for has a fixed technology stack in it. And as soon as you decide for it, you're already outdated, because the other guys who are not tied to it, they're already trying new and shiny things, and you basically have to work with what you decided for right now, for a while. The second problem was that it was configuration-based, and we ran into a couple of real-life use cases pretty soon, where we just weren't able to solve our assignments, the build things that we wanted to do to our files, by any particular combination of these configuration options. We really wanted to go into code and change things, but there's been another problem. It has been written by Ruby, and yeah, I probably shouldn't say that, but no one in our team is fluent in it. So this is how we came to the requirements to the ideal static site generator that would be good for us. First of all, it had to be JavaScript-based so that everyone in our team could go in and do things to it. It had to be possible to plug in different tools. Sometimes, depending on which project you were working on, there had to be different tools used. And of course, it had to do the static site generator job. So we had the possibility to start new projects quickly and automate our daily tasks. So we did something during last year. Our whole team, some of these guys are here, I see them around, have been working on it. We've been developing something, changing it, testing on live projects, throwing parts away. And at some point, we decided to name the thing, because it was really difficult to communicate when you say the thing. And here is what we ended up with. So everyone meet Statico. Statico, these are the guys I told you about. And Statico is a set of Gulp tasks. Yeah, surprise. So with the Node.js gaining its popularity, we decided to go for one of the famous task runners. And at this point, I get this question a lot. Why not Grunt? Because who uses Grunt here, by the way? And who uses Gulp? Aha, so should I skip this? I have a slide for this, so probably, no, I don't have a slide for it. Well, we chose Gulp because, I mean, as I said, we had some troubles with configuration-based approach when we were using middlemen. And it is actually quite convenient. So when you are developing something constantly, it helps you when you have the code. So every time you want to try something out, you don't have to think about how would I configure that. You just go in, do some changes, write some functions in JavaScript, probably project-specific. It could also be like this. And Gulp is also pretty fast, thanks to Node.js streams. Okay, so if you use Gulp, then that would be the easy part. I'd like to speak about a couple of details about how we structured the Gulp tasks. So the first obvious thing to do was this, because the default Gulp file just gets super long the more things you add to it. So this improved the maintenance for us. And at some point, we wanted to test the Gulp task we wrote, because the real project started using our platform, and as soon as we made changes to it, it might have broken something in the other project that are already running. So we decided that we're going to test the tasks and to, for example, make sure that the CSS is generated correctly. We decided that we're going to run the task on some dummy set of files and just compare the result to the expected. And we included some small CSS over there to check if auto-prefixing works, if it's minified, and so on. But to be able to test it, we had to define the tasks logic as a separate function. So this is a very simplified Gulp task that just calls linting on some JavaScript sources, concats the files, obfuscates them, and writes them to the destination. So as you see, config is actually a parameter, and that allowed us to pass the path to this function from the context outside of our generator, from our test context. So we could run the same very task on the real files of the project and on the dummy test files. And we could include these tests in the build, so in case you update to a new version of Statico and these tests for the tasks don't work, then probably we screwed up somehow in modifying the Gulp tasks. This is how it looks when wrapped in the Gulp test, so pretty simple. What has also been tricky when we did that is to create a good dispatcher that would be, first of all, really speedy, and second, it would reload as soon as you change particular files. It was really tricky to figure out which tasks were supposed to be called when something changes, because some of the tasks, they have the functionality, they interfere with each other. So what we decided to do is we decided to define the path that the task is supposed to react to right inside the task. So we have this kind of config, and this is like an also simplified example for this JavaScript Gulp tasks. And we export it, and we've created a watcher like this. We basically loop through the exported configs and call the task. This way, you only call the changes that are needed as soon as you make them, and not something else. And it's very easy to maintain, obviously. We tried to automate everything possible in Statico. And one of the features that I find really helpful is scaffolding. At some point, we found out that creating modules by hand, that the modules that have several files like this, it's pretty much a hassle. And developer also needs sometimes to register JavaScript and CSS in the main files. So we automated that with a scaffolding task. There is a command line interface for that. So you just specify module's name, and the module is being created from this scaffold that we keep in our project that could also be tweaked to be project-specific, this set of templates. And then the task generates the module for you and registers its CSS and JavaScript. Automatically, these links are being inserted in a particular section in these files. And we have a delete task that does the opposite, so no one needs to go and deregister the files and so on. Another challenge for us were the big projects. So as soon as we started to test this setup on a real big projects that had more than hundreds of modules, we realized that it would be nice to have the data separated from the templates. And the first option that we looked into was to use JSON, obviously, for the data inside the module, and use handlebars as a templating engine, and to write a Gulp task that combined them all together. Why we chose handlebars? For 3 reasons. First of all, those who know those of you who've seen it, you know that it's pretty easy to understand. It looks like HTML with some things inside it, so it was actually not scaring our backend developers when they saw it. It is extendable with custom helpers, so everyone can write JavaScript helper if something is missing in the basic setup. And the most interesting benefit is that the handlebars is based on mustache syntax. And a lot of backend languages like PHP and Java, they have their own mustache implementations. And that means that the templates we're actually having in our static prototype, they theoretically can be used one-to-one in backend as well with this mustache implementation. But we've only been happy with this JSON solution for a short while because displaying data is good, but it's obviously not enough. And we wanted to make particular sets of data that we've defined for our modules reusable throughout the project, and we wanted to be able to modify it as well before we displayed it. This thing is really hard to explain with slides and screenshots, so as a newbie presenter, I had no better idea than to make a live demo. Wish me luck. Right, so the idea of the demo was also to give you guys a little taste on Aesthetico as well. This is the GitHub page, so you can see that the installation is like plain and stupid. You just clone it, and what is good is actually that the whole Aesthetico setup is a part of your project, so you can remove some Gulp task, put something else in, change the scaffolding templates. It's really flexible, such a setup. Right, I have it already installed, of course, so I'm going to try to run it. Running it with a dev flag, that means that the assets are not minified, and I'm saying that I want to create a new build. Takes some time. There. This is the demo page, demo project I've set up quickly. So this is the page Thomas was talking about. This is the part of the so-called living style guide we've created. It has an index that is automatically generated, of course, this little style guide section, but let me show you first the scaffolding, because I'm sorry. So we did this fancy interface in here, so you can actually choose what you want to create, either a module or a page. And you can give a name for your module, actually a user-friendly one with spaces. Opt for creating JavaScript and CSS. I say yes to everyone. And after that has been done, we can see that our test module has appeared in the module section. Here's the scaffold, and these templates are initially not empty in our projects. We already have something for the data set up out of the box, some structure for JavaScript that we're using, so we have some kind of the common architecture that we're using in Unique. So this seems pretty handy. I've created a demo module called widget to show how data works, how we work with data in Aesthetico. It's pretty simple. It shows an image, title, and text. And in a browser, it looks like this. This is actually quite an interesting page, probably my favorite one of the whole not static site generator, living style guide as we call it, because it proved to be very convenient. It previews, it's automatically generated, it previews each module, it previews modules template code, which is really useful for communicating with backenders because they don't need to read through the HTML and find where the module starts and when it ends. So they can basically just copy it and replace the stuff with their things. And there is a preview of the Markdown documentation that is also part of the module. And we even added the possibility to run QUnit tests. It still refreshes the page for some reason, but there was a little test in here. So this is how it works. All right, so the data for modules, I'm going to explain it on the example of including module in the page. I have an empty page here. And our Gulp task works actually in such a way that we are able to include modules, this is the page code, by specifying the path for them, path relative to the directory of the project, to the root one. So I'm going to save, and let's take a look what we got. We got nothing except the module's border. So obviously there is no data for module to display. And that was the problem that we had with handlebars in JSON, because as soon as you use a partial outside of its own context, you have to specify the data again. So what we used to do, we used to just define some data in the page's context and use it to display a module like this. You can see that it works, but it proved to be a huge hassle, especially if you want to include your module in 50 different pages and you really don't care what it shows. It's supposed to show like default data. This is why we changed our Gulp task, and at some point it was possible to just use require for requiring the partials data as well. So we could require it, put into our data object, and actually use it. I'm gonna include another module here. This is the widget with its original data. It proved to be much more simpler. And because actually our data layer is just a plain JavaScript file, we were allowed to use full power of JavaScript to modify the data before display. So this little piece of code, it basically takes this widget data that we've already required, the default one, and replaces the title and creates 3 instances of them. So this is really cool to show, for example, 3 teasers with... Let me quickly change the template. Why didn't I save all this? Yeah, so it's the same data that is already once defined, slightly modified, and it proved to be incredibly useful when working with forms. So if you're including several field sets on a page and the names of some fields are the same, you might want to either prefix them or change them, and this is the way we do that. Okay, so let's take a look at what we did for the style guide. I've showed you the module preview page already, and we have a couple of pages here as well. They're pretty classical, so this one shows project colors. What is interesting about it is that we define our project colors in JSON object, and we generate our SCSS variables from the same JSON object we use for this page. So this actually displays the real-life situation, not something that we just coded on the page. We have an elements page, which as soon as you style the project will show you how your elements look. And the styles that are used on this page are actual project styles, which makes sense. Font preview, that is pretty useful for designers because the fonts are actually defined in some particular object. And if in some case they would see on a page the font that is not listed here, then probably we did something wrong, used the wrong size or the wrong combination of font weight or something. There is a page for forms. Here one can see as soon as the forms are styled how they look like. And there is the preview of the generated icon font. I've thrown a couple of icons into the project and the icon font is automatically generated. So there are several sizes here and developer can check how the icons align and such things. So that's pretty much it. I'm gonna give you back the stage for the next section.
Okay, so we have this Gulp tasks set up, our build process for the front end. Now, obviously, we don't want to do this build manually. So whenever we have a meaningful commit of code, we want our continuous integration environment to automatically create a build. So basically running the Gulp tasks. We might also want it to do different things like running static code analysis or anything else. And in the end, we want to publish this build. So for one, we want to put it on this previous server we showed you at the beginning. But we also want to publish it to an artifact storage. So in our case, this is called Nexus. And this is where the backend developers can grab these assets we generate automatically from. So they can use a tool like Maven to get CSS and JavaScript and everything from this storage. There are lots of different solutions for this, but Jenkins is just the nicest logo. Now, what do we need to run this on a continuous integration environment? Actually, it looks pretty easy. So we need Node and we need NPM, which is its package manager. That's it. So while this looks easy, it apparently isn't. First of all, there is a situation where you have different Node versions on different machines. So let's imagine we are working on the latest locally. So we have 0.12 on our local shiny MacBook. But continuous integration machine still has 0.12, 0.10, for example. And so if packages weren't updated yet, it's pretty obvious that our build is going to fail because the version we have locally behaves differently than the one on this continuous integration. The solution for this is pretty easy. And this not only happens between our local machine and the continuous integration, but also between different local machines. So different developers might have different versions of Node. And you can solve this pretty easily by using a tool like NVM. This allows you to, when in your command line environment, select a specific version of Node. It will also help you install it if you don't have yet. And for simplicity, you can also define the version you need within your project and pick it up automatically. And there's a similar solution on Windows, so works for everyone. The second problem we ran into pretty quickly were differences between platforms. The first one, so we wanted to run our Gulp tasks on this Linux machine we are using for continuous integration. And this was the result. So apparently this CentOS distribution didn't have some specific graphic dependencies installed. And this is going to happen pretty often if you want to run this on different platforms. The second issue to this regard is we have a task dealing with SVG files, and one part of it is generating PNG fallbacks for older browsers. So we started using Phantom.js, which is pretty handy for tasks like this. But we have one colleague, or I think now it's two colleagues working on Windows, and they discovered something like that. So yeah, it worked fine on my MacBook, didn't work on Windows. The second approach was to switch to another, to a graphics library, in this case to Graphics Magic. But there we discovered that depending on the platform you used, the result was, so the designers didn't like it. I don't know why. The next approach was to use Phantom.js on Mac and Linux, and Graphics Magic on Windows. This works fine for some time, but after a Windows update, I think Graphics Magic didn't work anymore, or not as it intended. So we had to go back to the first version. Now, Phantom.js worked on Windows, so yeah, for now we are sticking to this one. Now, to work around issues like this, it's very handy to have a virtual machine where you know that your system runs in. So we have these tools today. We have Vagrant, we have Docker. It's very easy to work with virtual machines like that. Basically, you just call Vagrant up within your command line. It will download a virtual machine. If you don't have it yet, it will set it up like specified somewhere in the project. And then you can connect into this machine, and from there on, it really feels like working on your local native environment, but you're within this really specified and isolated virtual machine. And there, yeah, you know your system will work. The next problem is npm install. Depending on when you run npm install, you might get different results. One reason for this is the way we have to specify dependencies for npm. So we have this package.json file with our dependencies and the versions we want. And the semantic versioning implementation of npm allows us to specify version ranges. So instead of just specifying that we want coveralls in version 2.7, we can specify a range of 2.7 to 3.0 by using this caret. So this makes it a bit easier to maintain a project. If there is an update to coveralls to 2.8, for example, we don't have to update our package.json, but it will just pick it up. Now, while this sounds pretty handy, it often happens in practice that minor changes break things. So coveralls version 2.8 might break things. It shouldn't, according to Samware, but yeah, things happen. If I would maintain a dependency like this, yeah, things will break all the time. So the solution there is easy. NPM has its own solution for it. It's called shrinkwrapping. And it generates a second JSON file. So you have your package.json, and now you also have this npm shrinkwrap JSON containing every dependency locked down to the current version. Also every sub-dependency. So yeah, everyone who's ever worked with npm knows that this dependency tree can grow. In our case, this npm shrinkwrap file has 20,000 lines, so it's too big for GitHub. But this behavior, this will change with the next npm version. So they will do better deduplication. That's why this should get easier with time. Next few problems are also connected to npm. Now, I really like npm. It works really well for me. There is also a really great team behind it. So if you ever have an issue, you report this on GitHub. They are very helpful and they take time. But there are many edge cases with npm. And since we don't have another hour, we will just skip to the solutions to many of these edge cases. And the first one would be to delete your local npm cache. And this cache is there, so you don't have to download the same package over and over again. But it can also lead to problems. So the first step when npm install fails is often cleaning the cache. And the second step is updating npm. So if cleaning the cache doesn't work, they release very often, so chances are that your specific problem is already fixed in the current version. Obviously, we use npm to update npm, and we can use this latest tag to get the latest stable version. And yeah, we have to put latest in stable in quotes, because this is an official message of npm changelog. So yeah, they break things sometime. That's why if you're using this, just expect things to break. Otherwise, you have to use a specific version. Or just wait a day and there will be a new version. On Windows, this seems to be difficult for some reason, updating npm, so I guess Microsoft built a tool for this. Now, the next topic, so we have created our completely awesome static site generator, and we decided to open source it. And along the lines there, we discovered some things to keep in mind. The first one, if you want to wait until you like your code, you will never open source it. We had these daily discussions about publishing it to GitHub now, and it was like, no, let's fix this one, do it tomorrow. And this carried on for, I think, several weeks or even months. So just publish it and continue, improve it publicly. It doesn't matter. The second part is, as soon as you open source something, you have to choose a license. And you might have legal experts within your company you can ask, or you can ask this tool created by GitHub on which license to choose. So there are different approaches there. And the second part, if you expect there to be contributions to your open sourced code, you should probably set up a contributor license agreement workflow. Like this, you make sure that if someone contributes code to your repository, you make sure you can use it and you have the rights to it. Now, when we started, we didn't have this workflow yet, so there are nice online tools for this. I think SAP created one, which is open source. But we didn't have it, so we did it old school. We created a Word file and made our first real contributor sign it. So that's also a possibility. But yeah, just make sure that you own the rights to this code and you don't end up in legal disputes with contributors at some point. I don't think this is an issue usually, but yeah. So every big open source project has this contributor license agreement. If you've ever contributed to jQuery, Angular, React something, you will have signed one of these. The last thing to take in, to not forget when open sourcing things is that it takes some time to maintain. That's something you should possibly plan ahead, so you have regular time where you can go through issues and pull requests and take care of them. You might also have to define who is going to take care of them. You might think about what to do with features and suggestions. So how do you decide whether new features end up in your tool or not? And the last thing, which is really important, is to contribute back to other open source projects. So obviously, about 99% of Estatico is based on other code, like every Node project. And if you see issues with a specific NPM dependency, just open a bug report or even a pull request and give back to what you've received.
It's me again. I'm supposed to wrap it up. I'm not going to make a huge summary. I mean, we understand all here that automating is essential to be quick in your daily work. And I guess we have a winner in the Gulp grant war, at least in this room, right? As Thomas said, open sourcing is something that could, first of all, teach you discipline because you have to maintain. And second, you get probably, if someone notices your project on GitHub, you'll get input from other people so you can improve even better. And the previous server in our case helped us a lot out. This feels a little weird to talk about all of this because it's not just like my product or my work or not just Thomas. That has been the work of the whole team. So I want you guys to, I have a postscriptum slide. Look at these faces. And in case you think that something has been done wrong, something hasn't been working really well in the demo, these are the guys responsible for that. Yeah, and we're pretty much done. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Very interesting. I've immediately started thinking for people who prefer like language, specific language, that if you like Node and you like something like Pattern Lab, you can use something like this instead of Pattern Lab, for example. There's on staticsitegenerators.net, there are 393 static site generators. What's going on?
Yeah, should I get it? Yeah, well, I think that, well, I actually learned it during the 2 last days of the conference that writing your own static site generator is obviously very in. I mean, everybody tries to do that, but I think, yeah, the reasons we keep doing that is that not everything is available on the web. So, for example, if I need some problem solved, I hardly can find a blog post that actually describes how to solve a problem in the West way. There are thousands of ways. And instead of doing like extensive search, what does a coder do? He goes, sits down and writes some piece of code. But I think that actually it might help if we wouldn't only open source the things we write, that we would also kind of promote them a little bit so that people who are looking for a particular solution would also find out that there is something already existing, that you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Just go and use it. What do you think?
How do you deal with documentation? How extensive is it, and how important do you find it for your
We're working on it. If you go visit the Staticos GitHub page, there's a short video which explains the main features, but I understand that it's not enough. And we're obviously adding a 394th entry on that website, but if anyone has any suggestions on how could we make it more public and more accessible, probably actually writing blog posts would be great.
But I guess one important thing to keep in mind, it's not that we would suggest to just use the solution. It's rather a concept we would suggest to use. So creating your own Gulp tasks, having the control over the complete stack and not just using a black box. I guess that's the main thing we would suggest.
Maybe one of these 393 would also do the trick.
Could be, if they were well documented. Are there any questions out there?
So when you start with a new project and you're doing such a static prototype of a design, at some point you move that design into the backend code, right? And the backend developers are like implementing it. And how are you handling like when there will be a design change? At some point, when the code bases like diverge and the prototype is getting old, and you just do the changes directly in the backend code. How are you handling that?
So we try not to do changes only in the backend. We try to always keep the front-end prototype up to date. Exactly for this reason, yeah.
We had one way in the back, so bear with me for a second.
Yeah, first, thank you for your talk and the tool you're bringing to the community. My question was quite similar to the other one, but then I have another one. What's your roadmap? Do you consider taking other template engine or?
Yeah, it's like, so what are you going to do in the future? We don't know. At the moment, we have some bugs that we found yesterday and today. So we're just probably going to fix that. Then we have, I think, a huge amount of one pull requests on GitHub, so we're probably going to do that as well. But yeah, the last year we have been adding features basically on demand. So if someone from our team pointed a problem at the meeting, we have been trying to solve that. So any suggestions?
And we also have different versions on every project, basically. So we just had a project where we used React. So we just sat down 5 minutes and created a Gulp task to do this JSX transformation. And so, yeah, every project looks different. It's not like we have a generic roadmap for this, we just invented while using it.
You had another question, right? Or no? Did you have a second question? No? Okay. Anyone else? No? Okay, please give Olga and Thomas a round of applause.